And hello, everyone. It's Rng Rpg, and the transition was cut off halfway through. I
What does that
apologize. It means that little triangle thing that comes up. I actually interrupted it before it stopped, which is unfortunate because I worked really hard on that
Our
one.
little triangle.
So, let's explain the premise of this live stream. So, I am Nadia. Hi. From the End Games. We're a friendly local game store in Charlottesville, Virginia. And this is my
Hi.
partner, Dev.
How's it going?
They really also love RPGs.
Well, 211. Sorry.
So what's happening
Maybe
is
20.
every week we are going to be talking about a random RPG that we will roll for qualities on here
2d6.
with two D6s,
That's
which
two
are
six-sided die.
the normal dice,
Regular.
essentially. And so to kick it off with our, inaugural stream, we decided why not start with the big one.
Get it out of the way.
The big one. Which is Dungeons and Dragons, obviously. So,
Sorry, you put dice in front of me.
I know.
Get out of here.
So, where to start? Because like D&D has been popular pretty much always with tabletop groups.
Since the
With
80s.
tabletop groups.
Tabletop groups.
But it's really ramped up recently, especially with COVID, and simply live plays have become extremely popular. I know.
I can't concentrate on live.
I know, you're
like,
ADHD.
Yeah, like I try to watch it. And
We're
it's like, this episode is
ADHD,
4
so we-
hours,
Yeah, we
Okay.
can't do that.
and there's 18 of them.
So
No.
anyway,
I don't have enough life. Sorry, you go. I'm sorry.
so what I'm trying to say is it's becoming more and more popular, and more and more people are being introduced to the game and playing it and having fun with it, which is really, really great because I think 5th edition is so far the most accessible D&D has ever been.
Yes. Well, this is gonna be great because we both have. You are more of a 5th edition enjoyer than I am.
Yes.
for
Average
sure.
5th edition enjoyer.
Yeah, which is weird because, but yeah, I do have some notes of stuff I would like to cover. I'm sure you have some stuff you'd like to cover. But I feel like accessibility is the big one for 5th edition because it is very much like you walk into the shop, and unless you have a pre-planned game that isn't 5th edition, if you're trying to get into something, probably it's 5th edition, right? Although I think there's some Powered by the Apocalypse stuff at the shop, right?
Oh, yeah,
That's kind of
absolutely.
popular.
Powered by the Apocalypse.
Monster Hearts
We
and
also
the like.
have Starfinder.
Starfinder.
Which happens a lot too. But I also believe that we have like D&D specific days, which are Sundays. So that's specifically for like the adventurers.
Dungeon Adventurers Guild,
Yes, which is
right? Sort of sanctioned play.
it's sort of
Kinda
like
like,
sanctioned play D&D where you can just show up with your character sheet and do a one shot.
Right, kind of like the Pathfinder Society, which I'm guessing they copied from something similar from 3rd edition. Okay, on the topic of editions, what are we talking about? Are we going like
Well, with this first one, I figure it's a big one to try and tackle all at once. So
fair?
we may as well just talk about 5th edition only because it's the most recent, it's the most relevant. Probably the big one that people are going to encounter firsthand. So
Yeah, I could talk for hours about 4th edition.
yeah,
so
I don't
that's
want you
probably
to.
not- Okay, so 4th edition is like Gundams for you. I'm gonna have to find a reason. So I'm gonna fudge them dice. Okay,
Okay.
5th edition. Let's
Yeah.
go. I've got some notes. So you're are you less of a mechanical person than I am?
I am. I am an art student. I don't like math. Okay, I
not
literally in college, they had a course that was math for artists. And that's where I'm at.
That seems reductive and like a little offensive to artists.
I mean, I took the class though, right?
Was it hard? I think you were taking that while I was failing like systems and my CS stuff. And like computer
Anyway,
science math.
What
Right.
I'm trying to say is math has not really ever been like fun for me. It's never been something that appeals to me. The mechanics of D&D often bog down what I feel is the important part of playing a role-playing game.
Which is telling
I'm
a
thinking
story.
specifically earlier editions, simply like encumbrance rules.
Have you ever played with anyone that used encumbrance rules?
No.
Yeah, you know why? Because nobody wants to track it. I've even like, and I know we're not supposed to swerve. We're on 5th edition. Like Pathfinder had this item muleback cords, which would like quadruple or something your like encumbrance capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And what you would what you'd basically do is you would put muleback cords on your character sheet, and then ignore encumbrance for the rest of the game. And at that point, you really might as well just not do it.
I mean, it makes sense. So anyway, D&D, it started in the 70s,
Whatever.
and
Something like that with Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson.
yeah, and I actually, it started with TSR, who
Yes.
then were
They were
bought
bought out
by
by
Wizards of the Coast.
in '97, I want to say, right before 3rd edition,
Yes.
which is why they had a lot of settings. I think Zakara
Yes.
came from one of the TSR settings.
It came from the Arabian Nights expansion.
Yes.
Well, expansion. It was basically like a D20 thing that TSR came up with to just play in like Middle East, North African inspired culture, which
cool.
Very cool. Some of it's fairly dated now.
Oh, a lot of the Forgotten Realms is dated.
So,
do you want to get to the Forgotten Realms now?
Oh,
because
okay, let's get to it
I've got
now.
some theories.
Let's
okay,
get to it now.
Let's talk about the Forgotten Realms. Actually, first, I would like to ask you. Well, I think this would be fun. We're gonna go narratively,
Mm-hmm.
and we're gonna go mechanically.
Yeah.
How approachable, from a scale of 1 to 10, do you think D&D is?
D&D,
5th edition.
5th edition, I think is very approachable. I would say
The mechanics.
simply because it is so immediate and so popular. There's lots of people who will help you learn very fast. So I would say maybe like a 7 or an 8.
For both?
For
For narrative complexity and also mechanically?
see, that's difficult because I think narrative complexity is inherently specific to your storytellers.
Okay. Let's assume you roll up for a game of D&D you've never played before. We haven't had this discussion yet because I'm going to ask you again at the end of the discussion.
Okay.
You roll up for like a what is it, the Players Adventurers Guild?
Yeah.
You run up for an Adventurers Guild game. You've got your level 1 barbarian. Narratively, the game is, I believe, most adventure modules are set in the Forgotten Realms.
Mm-hmm.
So how approachable is the Forgotten Realms setting of Dungeons and Dragons, and how approachable are the mechanics for a new player in your mind? Because you've been playing D&D for 15 years.
Yeah. So mechanically, I think it's a lot more approachable.
So I'm going to say 7.
I would say probably something like a 6 to 7.
6, 7.
Narratively, again, I
7.
think it depends on your
On your DM.
on your group.
Yeah.
But if we're going to be talking about the Forgotten Realms specifically, I'm actually going to say that's really approachable simply because there is so much lore that is established that no one gives a fuck about.
So you're saying that because the Forgotten Realms complexity actually makes it more approachable because you can just take all of that stuff. You can take the King Killer Star, and you can take Larlock, and you can just
and you can just
set it aside.
You can set it aside, or your players can look at that and be like, "That's kind of cool," and play off of that. And if they don't, it doesn't matter
because like setting resets every new edition anyway. And
I'm just thinking about how it's like how we don't know about like really significant and super weird events in history. Like
you don't.
Okay. Not every person is going to be expected to know about the King Killer Star or Larlock.
I thought you were going to quote real life events, and I was like, do you think the King Killer Star is a real thing? Is it a real thing? You got me. So you're gonna say like an 8 for narrative?
Yeah,
okay,
I think it's approachable because like it's
approachability.
It is fantasy. It is the fantasy that everyone thinks about. It's the thing that everyone like that comes to your mind when someone says D&D.
Dungeons and Dragons.
It's the Forgotten Realms, simply because it's the base setting. It's the base setting. It's
version.
Like people just.
I've got thoughts on that though.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so just to sort of give some context, I believe the base setting of editions before 3rd edition was Greyhawk. I think 3rd edition carried in Greyhawk and then sort of started transitioning into Forgotten Realms.
Yeah.
In 3.5.
I'm not really sure what happened to Greyhawk. They
basically just chunked it. I think 4th edition they moved off of Forgotten Realms into Nintervale or something. The sort of points of light setting, which I found really interesting. It was sort of it's sort of what I feel like they're doing with 5th edition Forgotten Realms, where the 4th edition setting was very similar to Greyhawk Forgotten Realms with the serial numbers filed off, which leads me to 5th edition, which is definitely Forgotten Realms. The player's handbook is talking about the Sword Coast. Go. You have something? You're smiling.
Nothing. I'm just saying that there's a lot of materials that actually convert a lot of like adventures and stuff to other settings that other players have done on things like DM's Guild, which is one of the largest like things for source books and homebrew and all that. And that is what I think makes it so accessible.
Oh yeah, I will say there's something in Magic the Gathering that they use to design cards called templating, where a card that does a certain thing looks a certain way, and that is true across all cards to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that they did with 5th edition.
Where it definitely makes sense because all of the adventures kind of have the same feel.
Classes, you get stuff at this, and this. You get a subclass that sort of develops as you go. You get an option to take feats, and you get them here, here, and here. It's more. Classes are more standardized. Monsters are more standardized than in previous editions, which makes it easier to sort of, as a home brewer, go and like, okay, I want to make a fighter that does something like this, and other subclasses you get an ability at, say 4, 12, 18, so I can slot my abilities in here, and that's the homebrew done.
Yes.
Basically. And I think that's really good. I do think
that compared to previous editions, they did sacrifice a little bit of like customization. Yes. Simply because there was so much that you could do in like third edition.
3rd edition went on for a long time though.
It really, really did, yeah. It
3rd
really
edition
did.
was around for 10, 12 years, basically.
Maybe a few years too long. Yeah. Which is making me curious about how they're going to approach the 5.5 stuff.
See, because here's my thing. I don't know that I want to be using 5th edition rules forever, but there's other games. So, but, okay. Let's if we're going to get into 5.5, let's get into 5.5. I know we were going to talk about Forgotten Realms. It ties in. I think the 5.5, we are reissuing the basic books with adjusted mechanics and rewritten classes. I think they're going to abandon Forgotten Realms. I think they're either going to give you sort of just generic fantasy stuff, or they're in the next 2-3 years they're going to have a setting other than Forgotten Realms that they want to use. Maybe something Strixhaven, maybe it's and finally just really tie magic and.
I mean, in about 2 years, we will have been playing 5th edition for 10 years.
5th edition came out in 2012?
2014.
2014, you're right. Gosh.
Yeah, so they're actually approaching where 3.5
Where
was.
3.5 kind of sort of started tailing off.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think 4th edition came out in 2008 and everybody just kind of ignored it, is what happened there. I think what happened was 3rd edition was like 2000, 2001? Something in that range?
I'm looking at the timeline right now, and 3rd edition was 2000.
Wow.
3rd edition revised was 2003.
So that was 3.5.
And then 4th edition came out in 2008 and 2010.
Twice. They tried to publish 4th edition twice. Nobody
4th edition,
except me. I'm the only 4th edition enjoyer in the world. Like
average 4th edition enjoyer.
Yeah.
But yeah. They are coming up on 10 years soon.
10 years.
And will be which is interesting because they did not wait that long to do 3rd edition revised, and I'm wondering if they hadn't revised 5th edition sooner, would it be more fun? Would it have been
if they had gotten to it sooner?
Yeah.
Well, I think what they're sort of doing now is sort of test filing the serial numbers off of Forgotten Realms stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of making it so monsters are less Forgotten Realms specific. They're working on Strixhaven, which, yes, the Strixhaven book is more of a DM resource to run games in the Strixhaven setting, but I do think they're going to start, do not mention it. I do think they're going to start. You get a beloved proficiency bonus. You can get multiple. That's it. I do think they're going to start expanding into 5th edition, Strixhaven more, because that's an interesting setting. Everybody loves
Arcavios?
Arcavios, yes. Everybody loves you are divided up into a school. There are little houses in that school. Everybody loves the Magic Boy School setting. They've got Eberron coming out, although Keith Baker putting Eberron stuff into the DM's Guild maybe makes me think they're not going to go with more Eberron.
I can't imagine why, though. Eberron's wildly
gorgeous. Popular. Everyone loves Eberron. It has all of the stuff you want. It's got artificers. It has reasons for there not to be guns. It's a perfect D&D setting. It's my favorite. I do find it interesting. They mentioned when they did that errata a week or so ago, the explanation was that they were changing stuff around so that monsters were more general and not specific to the Forgotten Realms.
Yeah.
And you know I'd been talking a lot about how that's what I thought they were doing. And they mentioned Athos, the setting for...
Dark Sun.
Dark Sun. They mentioned the setting for Dark Sun for the first time since 2008.
Everyone's putting on their fucking tinfoil hats.
I am full on tinfoil. They are getting rid of the Forgotten Realms, or they are at least making it not mandatory to be this is the base of D&D. If you're playing something else, you're in a different setting. I think you are going to have a new setting that is this is the base of D&D, or D&D is played in a general fantasy setting, and then we're going to have side books for.
I think they would probably serve better because I think they did the same thing in the Wild Beyond the Witchlight, where it's not setting specific.
Yeah, it's just in the Feywild,
where it gives you tips on how to adapt things
and incorporate it into.
Yeah, and I feel like that probably originated from Curse of Strahd, simply because Ravenloft is a multiverse setting. Yeah. Everyone shows up in Ravenloft from their own world, kidnapped by the mists.
I think we're going to end up with a base setting that is some type of multiverse setting, and then they're going to have like a plane shift where you can get a book and it takes your adventuring party to Innistrad, or it takes you to Arcavios, or it
Oh
takes
well,
you
they
to,
already released like
they have the PDFs for the plane shift. Innistrad.
plane shift.
Innistrad, Theros. Although there was a Theros book for D&D as well.
Yes, Mythic Odysseys, which is
yes.
where they introduced multi hit bar bosses.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I would love to see just a general. Some people are thinking Planescape. I think Planescape is a little.
Planescape's a little bit.
It's a little too weird.
I don't know if it's too weird. It is beloved, obviously.
Too much.
People love Planescape, the game I'm talking about, but because like people love it. But it's also really in there. Like you don't come across Planescape without having been immersed in Dungeons
like
and Dragons for a while.
I was gonna say it's like an enfranchised player. Setting.
Yeah.
That's you go to Planescape. You want Planes. If you're someone who likes Planescape, you're probably already liking Eberron. You're probably already what Spelljammer is.
Yeah.
You are probably already in there playing D&D games.
Whereas with things like Ravenloft, you can just hop into this adventure and be told you got stolen away from your land, and
you were kidnapped by the mists.
You were kidnapped by the mists. Here's a vampire.
That makes sense to me.
Hey there! Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
We're actually just talking about D&D 5th edition. And specifically how
Forgotten Realms.
The Forgotten Realms might be on the way out is your theory. I don't think they're gonna give up the Forgotten Realms. They've worked so hard on it. And then
can I tell you a fun fact about the Forgotten Realms?
Yeah.
The Forgotten Realms in universe is also a story being told to a character that Elminster knows, named Ed of the Greenwood.
Yes.
He lives in a mystical land called Earth, where there are buildings that scrape the sky and metal birds. And how we know about the Forgotten Realms is because Elminster is telling his good friend Ed of the Greenwood. And that is a true thing about the Forgotten Realms.
I really love the idea that in universe Ed Greenwood is just plagiarizing this magic guy he knows.
In universe, Ed Greenwood has taken this amazing story about an alternate reality where magic is real and you can revive the dead and meet dragons. And he said, all right, well, I'm not going to do any of the things with that I should do. I am going to make money off of it.
I do really enjoy that. It's very, very, very good. I will say though, they have put so much into the Forgotten Realms that it's easy to have a niche for your players. If they're into a certain type of story, you can do that. If they are hack and slash adventurers and they just want to do fights, you can do that. If you want to do a narrative based story, you can do that. And I think it's really one of those things where it's just appealing to everyone.
Yeah, I think I think 5th edition, and I know you're going to disagree with me. As much as I love Eberron, as much as I would love to see Dark Sun, I think 5th edition represents a solid middle ground.
Yeah,
where you're kind of middle of the I want to do narrative stuff, I want to do crunchy hack and slash stuff, and it doesn't fully commit to either side the way I'd want it to. It's not my favorite. I enjoy it for what it is, which is it's Dungeons and Dragons. It is for sure the absolute best way to play the specific fantasy game that is Dungeon and Dragon. For anything else, I think there's a mistake people like to make, which is I want to play a super crunchy, like high fatality dungeon crawl, and they're like, well, I only have D&D, and then they end up playing it in D&D and sort of not enjoying themselves.
Chat says, I will not look for this, but I will turn it into a story game.
Yeah, pretty much.
I do love that. I love that instinct for him. I love that his fictionalized version of himself would just do this.
It's just that movie where that guy wakes up and he's the only person who remembers the Beatles, and the Beatles aren't real. And he's like, well, what I'm going to do with that is try to make money, which is like, same. But like, it's like that. And it's, the funny thing about it is that's not even the easiest or best way he can make money with magical portals to a fantasy world where all of your
Gotta get that dosh.
all of you. No, dude, you take some. You here's what you do. You take a bunch of real world gold. You melt it into doubloons or whatever the hell they use. You melt it into platinum. You get some platinum from your local platinum dealer on Earth.
Yep.
And you go to Ed. You go to
Ed of the Greenwood.
No, Ed of the Greenwood goes to his friend Elminster and he says, Elminster, I've got a plan to make us rich as hell. And what you do is you bribe a cleric on the other side, in the upside down for the Forgotten Realms, and then you bring people through, and you have that cleric cast greater restoration on them and cure any ailment they've ever had in their entire life. And you charge them $100 for this. Just $100 of Earth money, right? Because $100 of Earth money can almost certainly buy like millions of D&D gold, right? Because those people are, the inflation in the Forgotten Realms is insane.
I love this plan that you're coming up with. Instead of just having like, I love the idea that even in a magical fantasy world, we can have universal health care.
I mean, you don't though. Because in theory, cleric magic is free.
Yeah.
Right? It is from the gods. But clerics do still like charge you money to cast spells for you. It's not even like wizards where it's like I had to scrape and train and learn for 20 years to be able to cast magic missile. Clerics can just wake up one day and their god is like, oh, by the way, you can make infinite food now. and they're like, all right, cool.
This is my special little boy.
This is my special little boy. I'm just
gonna sprinkle some magic on you.
You're my special little guy, says Torm. You can raise the dead. You can cure illnesses, and you can make food from nothing.
I love the idea that you're skipping over the class, which is literally this, which is favored soul.
There's no favored soul. There's
in 5th edition.
There's the
divine soul in
the
sorcerers. But I still do very much like the idea that one player character is just God's special little boy.
You're just Mask's favorite guy. You're his favorite little thief.
They just hold your player character up and go, I just think he's neat.
I also love the idea that like you are a person blessed by the gods in several of these classes, and that's not like weird to anybody.
I mean, it again depends on your DM.
It's the setting, I guess.
But anyway, what I guess I'm trying to say is D&D is iconic. It is so present. It is so accessible. It is
ubiquitous, perhaps.
Yes. Yeah. It's whenever you say RPGs, someone will bring it up. It is pretty much inseparable from the thing. That being said, as our wonderful friend Will Spinks said,
play Blaze in the Dark instead.
D&D is mostly for everyone, but if you want something more specific, you need to look into
D&D
other specific games that will suit your interests, which is honestly part of the reason for this stream. So
we're starting with D&D, but we've got, so can we go through what we've got for our dice?
Yes.
Real quick.
So this does feel like a fairly good time to begin wrapping things up, simply because in future streams we will have will go over the mechanics. We will probably do one shots. We will do deep dives into
5th edition. It's hard to do a one shot for.
Yeah, 5th edition. I mean, it's not. There's spur of the moment between two people. No. That's probably harder.
Within an hour between two people, that's difficult. There's other games that are way better at stuff like that.
An RPG that can only be fought in mechs, asks chat. So chat, I highly recommend looking at the RPG Lancer, which is
there's truly
excellent.
Expansion for Lancer right now, which does have pilot combat.
Yeah.
Like detailed pirate combat, but like for the most part, Lancer takes place in mechs. There's Maharlika, which is a Filipino mech RPG that's being made.
Ooh.
That I'm really excited for. It's not out yet, but I'm really excited for it. But okay, so the dice that we have, and I still have other stuff I want to cover on D&D. I gotta get your judgment on bounded accuracy, dog.
What about it?
How do you feel about it?
Well, given the fact that you told me about it and I immediately forgot, I'm going to need a refresher.
Okay, so
and probably chat would appreciate it too.
Should I read you what D&D itself has to say about, the designers have to say about bounded accuracy?
Sure.
Or should I just, okay. I do have that pulled up here. Here we go. So this is from Rodney Thompson of Wizards of the Coast. And he says, and I'm going to just direct quote him here, the basic premise behind the bounded accuracy system is simple. We make no assumptions on the DM side of the game that the player's attack and spell accuracy or their defenses increase as a result of gaining levels. Instead, we represent the difference in characters of various levels primarily through their hit points, the damage they deal, and new abilities that they gain. Characters can fight tougher monsters not because they can hit them, but because their damage is sufficient to take a significant chunk of the monster's hit points. Likewise, the character can now stand up to a few hits from that monster without being killed easily, thanks to the character's increased hit points. So
it seems like what they did is they were like, okay, not everyone's going to be good at this game, so let's put in a handicap.
Yeah, basically how...
I just really love the idea that they were like, okay, so there's going to be a percentage chance that some people just suck shit at this game. Yeah. So let's go ahead and just make it automatically fun and not a huge bummer for them when they get killed.
Yes, but so how bounded accuracy basically works is instead of going vertical, your character gets broader abilities and they also get more resilient.
Okay.
They are...
So you can actually play the game.
Yes. And I think this was a direct response to 3rd edition, which I've ranted about this, and we're gonna if we ever roll up 3rd edition with our dice somehow, I'm gonna go on a whole rant. But 3rd edition is based on Mont Cook's Ivory Tower game design. And what that basically was he and Wizards of the Coast wanted a game that was collectible in the same way
that Magic was collectible.
So
yeah.
What they did was they said,
we will make these source books collectible.
700 source books, splat books, whatever you want to call them. And in each of these things, there's going to be maybe 2 or 3 things that are actually worth getting, and everything else is abject garbage. And part of the game, part of the design of the game, is that a lot of these options are traps for new players.
I do really like that one ranger that's like of Wield and Woe.
That's a Justice of Wield and Woe.
Yeah.
It's a very good class. But what they ended up doing was making a game where instead of being like, I am a fighter, you had a game where people were like, I am a Cleric 3, Priest 7, Foklukan Lyrist 5, Arcane Knight 6, Wizard 1, Initiate of the Sevenfold Veil 3, and I have 9th level Cleric, Wizard, Druid, Bard casting, and I have max attacks per round, and also I am using persistent meta magic to cast Divine Favor for 24 hours with Nightsticks. And that became such a mess by the end of 3.5.
I really love the idea that the DM of this theoretical
would allow
game
that to happen.
Just is like, yeah, sure, whatever, yeah.
I think if we ever do 3rd edition,
the important thing, I would say tricks. Most important thing about DMing, if anyone is wanting advice from a slightly less new DM to newer DMs, please feel free to say no.
Learn to say no. Learn to say no. You don't want people showing up with that type of shit.
Yeah.
Like doing something.
I appreciate the importance of yes and. Some things you cannot yes and.
No but. Yes and or no but. No, you can't play this character, but you can play something that's not a giant steaming pile of mechanics. Okay. So we wanted to talk about the dice.
Yes.
So when in the episode, when we're winding out, we're going to roll 2 dice, and it's going to combine a genre and a set of mechanics. And the genres we have are fantasy, sci-fi, horror, modern, historic, and simulation. Whatever. And the mechanics we have are D20s or D&D likes, for 1. 2 is narrative or non-mechanical games, for 2. Card-based, for 3, just because I want a chance to play for the queen on here. I'm saying it's a collaborative storytelling game, which means
no, it absolutely counts.
Diceless, but not card-based and not non-mechanical, which will be fun to hunt down.
So at one point I'm going to make one of these like NSFW.
You're literally doing this for work.
Yeah. And we would approach it,
and we'd approach
seriously,
an NSFW game
as though it were a safe for work game.
Okay. Can I make a request?
Yeah.
No fatal?
Oh my God, no.
Okay.
No.
Just making sure. Okay.
I think that one has been visited quite a bit. I don't think anyone is sitting on the edge of their seat waiting for us for our hot takes on Fatal.
The hot take that Fatal's a bad game that literally every single person other than the person who made Fatal has ever agreed with.
Don't worry, Chad. It's not important. Don't look it up.
Don't look it up. It's bad.
It's bad.
5th, if you roll 5, it's dice, but non-D&D. So, you got your shadow runs in there. Yeah, I think Blades in the Dark uses dice. I haven't played Blades. I love Blades. The Blades episode is going to be 4 hours long.
Oh, it absolutely is.
And 6 is because I wanted to challenge myself to hunt this down. Roguelike. 5th.
Yeah, that
RPG
one does.
Mechanics.
Speaking of chat, if y'all know of anything that fits these requirements that we roll, I highly, highly, highly request. No, don't look at Fatal.
Don't look at Fatal.
But
you can make a Facebook post asking for
asking for genre and mechanic. Send us a message. We will find one.
Hit us up.
So let's go ahead and do our roll and
you
close out this first one.
Are you gonna roll genre or are you gonna roll mechanics?
Ooh, this one's hard. I'm gonna choose genre for me. So I'm gonna go ahead and roll for.
You're not the mechanics person here.
Genre.
Genre.
Woo! We got a 6.
So a simulation. So
that's going to be interesting. All right.
Simulationist game.
So then you will roll
that's
mechanic.
More of a mechanic. All right, here we go.
3.
Card-based simulation.
That's
really hard. Off the top of my head,
that's going to be weird.
The only game I can think of that would even qualify is what is that game we played where it's like you're playing out a relationship?
Oh, Fog of Love.
Fog of Love.
I don't think that technically
kind of a board game, but you are inhabiting
you are playing a role though.
I'm gonna write down Fog of Love.
Okay, so next time we might be playing Fog of Love.
We'll do some research. We'll see what we're
Fog of Love, the RPG.
I mean, it's kind of an RPG. Simulationist. Card-based. It was card-based, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it had cards in it.
Simulation and card-based is what we rolled. So we're going to end up with basically a board game.
Yeah.
Although I would argue that
I feel like there is an RPG that is that though. Like
I would kind of argue the ground itself.
The ground itself definitely I think suits. I think that definitely is one because it is genre-wise, it's a simulation.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is.
Growth and development of an area.
Yeah, and then mechanically, it is done with cards. So I think one's a really heavy contender. I think, unless someone suggests something that looks super, super, super fun.
Yeah.
So let's see, simulation.
Are you just looking it up?
Yeah.
I will say, I do enjoy bounded accuracy. As much as I complain about having less customization, I think part of what 5th edition was a reaction from Wizards of the Coast to how broken and crazy 3rd edition and Pathfinder and even parts of 4th edition can be. And they said, okay, let's narrow down what you can. Let's narrow down the top end, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'll give people more broad abilities, but in general, you are always going to be the same at swinging a sword accuracy-wise as you are at level 1, right?
Yeah.
You'll have more ways to swing a sword, more opportunities to swing a sword, more things that your sword does when it hits something, but you're not going to be a character who is capable of turning the spell Locate City into a concussive blast that wipes out a nation, right?
Yeah.
There's no puns, there's no zero-ficers, there's no damage feedback loops.
There's no chicken mancers.
There's no chicken mancers, no peasant railguns.
So I do have something that I can tell you,
yes.
which is, would you firstly, would tiles count as cards?
Do you flip them or can you hold them? Are they cards, literally? Are they? You know what a card is? Is it a physical card?
It's a physical thing that you can hold, but it's a tile.
I'll allow it.
Anyway, what I'm trying to say is there's a Stardew Valley board game that uses mostly cards and tiles.
Is that an RPG?
Are you not filling the role of a farmer who
Okay.
is fulfilling the wishes of your ghost grandfather?
I'm not. Fine. We're gonna Stardew Valley.
The board game.
Okay, so you're acknowledging that it's a board game.
No, that's the title.
So they're telling you it's a board. So you're fucking with me, is what you're doing. You're just messing with me. Great.
Yeah, I am just messing with you. I do really like Stardew Valley, though. If you guys like farming simulators and like Harvest Moon type games, definitely try out Stardew Valley. Otherwise, I will be posting a thing saying, hey, this is what we rolled. If you know of things that have simulation mechanics and a theme around card mechanics,
Nice.
hit us up. Because
Yeah.
I'd really... this is hard. I think it's going to end up being The Ground itself.
The Ground itself is a great game. I'm a big
It
fan.
is a very good game. My only problem is we might end up playing it for like 4 hours.
We would definitely have to go hard on the like timing rules that they provide.
Yeah.
Because we ignored them when we played together.
We did, and we played it for like 5 hours.
Yeah. So check out D&D, check out the other streams you do. You stream on Fridays and Sundays also.
Oh, I stream Friday Night Magic on most Fridays. I will not be doing so tomorrow because the shop closes early at 5 for Christmas Eve. And then on Sundays, we have the Chill Paint stream. And then, now we will have on Thursdays the Rng Rpg.
Yeah. Awesome.
So thank you for joining us, and, take it easy and take care. Thank you for showing up.
Thank you. Can I sign us out with a Dungeons and Dragons anecdote?
Yes.
Specifically the Forgotten Realms?
Yes.
Just a fun fact with the Forgotten Realms.
Mm-hmm.
There's an artifact in the Forgotten Realms called the King Killer Star, and it's a red comet that passes through the sky every now and then, every 600 years or so. And it turns all dragons insane, and it makes them kill each other, kill people, kill anything in their path, until the comet is out of sight. And dragons are fully sentient in the Forgotten Realms.
Yeah, they're like full ass
like
people.
They're people. So when they knew that the King Killer Star was coming around for a second time, what they did was they built a artifact called the Draco Rage Missile, which was a laser, and they shot it, and they missed, and they hit the moon, and that is why the moon in the Forgotten Realms is trailed by a series of smaller artifacts called Saloon's Tears. Basically, dragons fired a laser, hit the moon by accident. Bye.